So hi there, welcome to lesson 6 of module 4. We're still dealing with clarity. Now we have found that there are certain challenges with our data in terms of clarity. So it's very important that when you find any of those issues, we can now provide feedback in Excel. Now, why we do that a lot? We use Excel because sometimes people don't have the Stata software, so it's very easy to communicate what we are trying to say in in Excel. Sometimes just good for our record purposes. So we're going to talk about how you export the feedback. When you finish your clarity checks or your completeness checks, you need to provide evidence of where the issues are. And that's exactly what this lesson is about. Of course, we'll get to learn a few Stata commands, and that will help us to improve how we use it for data management. So let's look at how we export. So basically, exporting is basically to document the checks, to document the changes, and then it's a very good tool for managing stakeholders. So as you manage your data, different people need different things. So you need to be able to give them what they need. For example, if you are managing data for the whole United States, one of the governors may just want data for his state. So you have to find a way of extracting that data and sharing it. So that's how it works. Okay, so without wasting much time, let's look at the syntax. Very interesting syntax. So it is export Excel var list. That means the list of variables you want to export to Excel. This also means that you don't need to export everything. You can just export some bits and some pieces. That's how it works. Then you have to export using a file name, and then the if and in are conditional statements which help you to extract. So let's see how it works. So we have a couple of examples that will greatly help. So I say export Excel state population using census.xls, comma sheet. Now that's one of the export options. You have to specify the Excel sheet that you are using for exporting. Now we also have export Excel state population using census blah 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 if. Now the if statement, we're using it here if region equals to 3. Now, what we are using for this particular demonstration is the census data. So if you have it, you can, use your CCUs, open it, and then try to export. But we'll try to do a demonstration shortly. So these are all the options. So you can actually specify the variables, like you can see here where we specify state and population in the first two lines. But in the last two examples, we don't. So then you can specify the sheet, and you can specify a subset, some observations. Some observations can be specified. Okay, let's not waste so much time. Just take a look or a snapshot of that. Also take note of that option called sheet replace. Greatly help. So we have our data editor on the left and our do file editor on the right. And what we do is we use the clear command, we use the CSUs, and we browse, and that's what we have here. Now we want to export some data out. So it's very important to have your CD command again. You have to tell Stata where you want to take that file to. It's a CD command here, and that's how it looks. So let's look at it closely. So you see, the two variables are listed here. I could zoom in a bit so that you can see two variables, state and population, are listed, and there's export Excel using census. That's the file. This file will be found in this folder. It's very important, and then ends with sheet replace. Very simple code, and you can also try it as you are watching this. So the other one is just showing you in what it looks like in the data editor now. So that's the state, and that's the population, and that's what we use for the exporting too. So you can select the files, and then you can export. So when you export, it just tells you the Excel file has been saved in this folder. So now let's look at the Excel file we are talking about that we exported. This was the file we exported, just state and population. Maybe somebody says, please just give me population figures for all the states. Then you bring it down here, get all the states. But there's something missing here, and I'm going to talk about it shortly. So we have census on one side, that is the name of the sheet, and then let's look at it in the syntax. That census is because you sheet census sheet replace. That's why you have it here. And then the other part talks about the file itself. The file is called census XLL. So when you open the output file, that's what you find. So let's spend some time and look at the output. The output just shows states and the population. In the practice that we are going to do, we are going to tell you how to add headers here. So this is the state, everyone. So we'll talk about the option in export that allows you to add headers here. So I hope this is fine. I'll meet you in the practical class and we'll discuss this further. Thank you. See you in the practical class.
So hi there, welcome to the practical session where we use the export command, particularly export into Excel. So we're going to go straight to the file we want to use. Let's use the census data which we were using just some few minutes ago, so that you can align. It has fewer variables and it's probably easier to understand. So once the data is open, which we have done basically in this first line, the next thing we want to do is export. So when we say export Excel, and we only want to export a few variables into Excel, we'll say state and pop. That's what we had. But if you remember in the video, we have to tell Excel where we want to save it. So I will go and save it in the appropriate folder. So in my C drive, which I advise you to do, I already have a folder called datasets, and that's what I'm going to do. We can now call this module, create a folder called module 4. That's fine. And that is where we want to save our work. That's fine. So I will just minimize and then come here and just paste. So I'm just saying change directory to module 4. Now I emphasize two variables, state and population. That's all I want. And I'm going to say using the file name. So I will call this module 4. Let me export .xls. So if you don't have, which I doubt, the latest version of Microsoft, maybe you just use .xls, but it's just lighter and it takes more variables or more cells when you use the modern one. Okay, so that's what this does. So I could also specify the sheet. Now these are the options for Excel export. So what sheet do I want to call it? I want to call it census, and then sheet replace. Now sheet replace just allows you to keep replacing or overwriting the sheet if it's existed before. So if the file and sheet exist before, it overwrites. So we're going to do that, but I will call it census 1 because we're going to do various varieties and we will be able to compare. So I'll just call it census 1 and then run. Now to know if it has successfully run, you check here in your main windows, no errors, everything fine, because sometimes it's difficult to find that in the data editor. Now let's look at the folder too, and here it is. The file is here, so it's best to quickly open it and see. If you recall, we had selected just two variables, so The variable was state and the variable was population. Those were the two variables. But there's a challenge here. There's no header. As you can see, there is no header. So that's bad. So we're going to try to see the options that are available to create headers in Excel. So I'll close this down completely. It will ask me to save. I say yes, that's fine. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, that's it basically. We have just shown first sample of output, and the problem with that was there were no headers. So I'm going to copy again. I'll call this census 2, but this time I'm going to use an option called first row, and I'm going to use first row has two types. I'll use the word variables. So what does that basically do? This state and population will now have, there will be a header, and they will be called by their variable names, which is state and pop, the way you find it right here. Okay, so let's run again. Let's come back to the file. If you observe, the file has grown bigger. So census 1 has no label. You can find that. But census 2 now has state and pop listed here. You can see it. So it has the variable names. But let's just say people don't understand what state and pop means, and they want to really understand what it is. So let's look at the labels. Let's go back to our do file, and then we'll just change this first row option again. But to do that, we have to first shut down our Excel. So we shut down this Excel that has census 1 and census 2 because we're going to census 3. Okay, let's go to census 3. We were not happy with the variables listed here, so I will type in census 3. Census 1, the difference between census 1 and census 2 is this first row. But now I want to change it to var labels, and I run again. It will all be in this folder, and it will also be the same file. Sorry, I don't need to save now. So when I run, it has finished running correctly. So that's for census 3. Let's see what it brings up. So the file is here, census 1 there, census 2 here, census 3 now has the labels. Wow. So clearer labels. So professionally, especially if you are dealing with stakeholders who don't understand what those variables stand for, I would advise you use labels. Of course, short labels, because if the labels are long, they'll just be unnecessarily long. So we have used, 3 scenarios. When there was no first row, now there's a first row but variable name, and then there's a first row label. So that's how it works. Basically, that's how it works. What else? So that's how those options are created. Now, up until now, for all these variables, all we have done is to pick two variables. We could pick more. So let me go back again to the session. So I could pick state population. I'm still using a variant of census 3. I'll call it census 4. And then I want to probably add now state population, and then let me just add region, and now run again. I have to shut down the file because I'm overwriting this file, so I need to shut it down. So I can save or unsave, that's fine. And then run again, come back to my folder. I come back to my folder here and then open the file. So there's census 4. I've added a variable called census region. So we now have 3 columns. So that's how it works when you are using Excel. But you may want to just export every variable without having to specify that's everything data set you want to take it to Excel. Fine. And in that case, you just change your options or change the syntax a bit. You say export Excel, I think all 13 variables in this data set. So what you do is just remove, if you want all the dataset variables to go, just delete. There's no need to specify. Once you don't specify, it assumes you want to export all datasets. And then you now have census 5. We run again. Come back to the folder and then let's open it. So, oh, sorry, I did not close this down. So that's why I said, so what you would find if you don't close your file in Excel, you have to close the file before you overwrite it. You can't overwrite a file that is currently running. So it says here in the error, file blah 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 could not be saved. Why? It is on. So we have to shut it down. You can save or not save, it's all your choice. And then you come back here. Okay, so yeah, we call it census 5. So let's go and run again. We come back here, it has run, double click the file again. Now we have census 5. Now census 5 has everything. Now you know that's the labels. Because of the labels that are long, which is fine, like this 2-letter state abbreviation, quite a long label, you have them, but now it has all the variables been exported, and there are variable labels used as headers. We can still use the variable name, so I'm going to do census 6. Close this down, save. And you may not choose to save, please. It's not compulsory whether you save or not. It will still overwrite, provided all the lines of code are there. It will execute everything. So 6, I don't want to use the labels, they are too long. I can go back and pick my variable names and put it back here. So I want you to experiment, just like a recipe, you know, different things. If you put salt, if you add spice here, how does it look like? And that's how you get to really have a good grasp of Stata. You need to keep, yeah, want a better word, experimenting, you know, within ethical boundaries and within, you know, safe boundaries, you know. So you change it, you change to variables you want. Yours may not be state and population. Take a variable you want and try it out. And but please don't forget the very important things that could cause problems for you. If your CD does not emphasize, directory does not emphasize, it's not emphasized, there'll be problems. It may be saving, but you don't know where it's saving. So you need to know your working directory. We had mentioned this in, I think, module 2. So I hope this is fine. Let's take census 6. The only difference now between 5 and 6 is that I don't want those long labels. I just want a short label, or short variable names rather. So I run. Once I'm done, I open the file again. Let's see what census 6 looks like. Now census 6, 5 was with all these labels, but 6 will be more petite. Can you see? You can see more at a glance. It just has short names, and of course, and that's what variable names. You cannot have more than 32 characters for a variable name, and that's what we have here currently. This is how it works. So I hope you find this straightforward. This is census 1, 2 variables but no header. Census 2, 2 variables but header as variable name. Census 3, the header as a variable label, you know, and 4, three variables, and 5. So you can pause the video or rewind the video and type in your own syntax, and let's see in the comments what your experience is. Also try to tell me what you do differently from mine, and that's fine. Nobody has to do it exactly my own way. I don't even like that. So please try and experiment. Share with your friends, let them also experiment. Anyone who has data, they are able to do the same things with Stata. So thank you so much. I will see you in the final lesson where we'll really go on another practical, hopefully longer, with a few more twists, trying to understand the principles that we have used until now. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next class.